The second I stepped into that house, I knew I had walked into something I was never meant to see. The music was pounding through the floor like a second heartbeat, but it was not loud enough to drown out that tiny voice in the back of my head that kept screaming something was off. I had been invited, sure, but nobody really expected me to show up. The front door was cracked open just enough to make it feel wrong, and someone had taped up this ridiculous sign that said "Surprise in Progress" in glittery pink marker like it was a kid's birthday party. I walked in anyway, not because I wanted to celebrate, not even because I was curious, but because something inside me needed to know. The living room was packed shoulder to shoulder with faces I barely recognized. Red cups everywhere, people laughing, bodies moving to the music like they were hypnotized. Someone shouted my name, Jake, but it sounded like they were surprised I existed. I nodded back, forcing a smile, sweat already starting to collect under my collar. My hands were shaking, and I told myself it was just nerves. But it was more than that. I scanned the room looking for her. Claire, my wife. My reason for still showing up to the life I had been quietly falling out of love with. I caught a glimpse of red across the crowd, something shiny near the back door. Heels. Her heels. The ones I bought her for our anniversary last year. She had said they were too much, too flashy, and tucked them into the back of her closet. But there they were now, stepping backward toward the patio with a man's hand pressed against her lower back like it belonged there. It was not her friend. It was not her coworker. It was someone I had never seen before. They slipped out the glass door, and I followed, each step feeling like a betrayal I had to confirm with my own eyes. She turned just as I opened the door, her smile still frozen on her face, one hand brushing something off his collar, her laugh high and soft and intimate in a way I had not heard in months. And then his hands moved lower, like he had done it before, like he had every right. She did not pull away. She did not even flinch. It was not a mistake. It was something far worse. I stood there for a moment before she saw me. Her expression dropped like someone had flipped a switch. The color drained from her face, and her body stiffened. But he just kept smiling like none of it mattered. Jake, she said, her voice cracking on the edge of a lie. I did not answer right away. I could not. My throat was closing around the heat that was building from somewhere I could not reach. When I finally spoke, I barely recognized my own voice. Is this the book club meeting you mentioned? Silence. She stepped away from him like she had been caught stealing, but it was too late. The damage had already etched itself into my memory. He grabbed a beer from the patio table, casual like they were not standing in the ruins of my life. I laughed, not because anything was funny, but because everything was suddenly too real to cry about. Claire looked around like the crowd might disappear if she ignored me hard enough. This is not what it looks like, she said, but I was done with performances. How long has it been? I asked, my voice calm in a way that scared even me. Tell me the truth. Do not act like this is new. She glanced at him, then at me, her jaw tightening. You were never around, she said. You spent more time talking to your computer than to me. You stopped seeing me. You stopped touching me. She wanted me to feel guilty for walking in on her betrayal. She wanted me to carry the weight of her decision. I looked her in the eyes and said the only thing I could. I did not stop seeing you. I just did not recognize what you became. Then I walked away, through the house, through the people who had watched it happen and said nothing, through the wreckage of what I thought was real. And for the first time in months, I did not look back. I drove for hours that night without a map, without music, without a destination, just the sound of the engine and the wind clawing at the edges of the car, like even the night was trying to peel me apart. My hands were locked so tight around the steering wheel that my knuckles ached, but I could not let go. Not yet. Not while the image of Claire with his hands on her body kept playing behind my eyes like a loop I could not pause. I had no plan, just movement. I passed gas stations, blinking signs, empty streets, and finally pulled into some random lot off a highway exit I did not even recognize. I turned off the engine and just sat there, staring into the dark like maybe it would answer the questions I did not know how to ask. I was not angry. Not yet. Anger would have made sense. Anger would have given me something to fight. What I felt was heavier than rage. It was silence. A kind of silence that settles behind your ribs and makes breathing feel like a betrayal. I reached for my phone. 27 messages. Missed calls. Her name over and over again. Claire. 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 I opened the first voicemail. Not a sorry. Not even a question. Just her voice, sharp, annoyed. You embarrassed me tonight, Jake. You really made a scene in front of everyone. That was completely unnecessary. I listened again just to be sure I heard it right. Not sorry. Not regret. Just shame. Her shame. Not for what she did. For being caught. Message after message followed like footsteps chasing me into a corner. It is complicated, Jake. You have been emotionally unavailable for years. He listens to me. We were going to tell you eventually. Eventually. Like I was the last one to read the script in a play about my own life. Like I ruined her timing, not her vows. That is when it started burning. Not the kind of fire that roars. The kind that smolders under the skin, slow and deep, turning everything to smoke from the inside out. I threw the phone onto the passenger seat like it might catch fire in my hands. I did not want it near me. I did not want her voice in my ears. I did not want her words reshaping my reality anymore. I sat in that parking lot until the sun started bleeding into the horizon. Then I made one call. My brother picked up on the second ring. I told him I needed a place to crash. He did not ask questions. Just texted me the code to his front door. I drove straight there. When I got in, the apartment was dark and quiet. I dropped onto his couch, still in my jacket, and stared at the ceiling until my eyes finally shut. I do not remember falling asleep. I just remember waking up the next morning with my phone buzzing again. 3 new texts. One of them from her. We need to talk. I think we can still fix this if you calm down. You are overreacting. That one broke something in me. Not the cheating. Not the lies. Not the betrayal. That message. That tone. Like my devastation was inconvenient to her. Like I was the unstable one. That is when I knew. This was not about love. Not anymore. This was about control. And the second she lost it, she could not handle it. That morning I did not reply. I did not even open the rest of the messages. I got up, made coffee in my brother's cramped little kitchen, and sat by the window while the city kept moving outside like my world had not just collapsed. I realized then I was done trying to understand her. Done defending her. Done giving her the benefit of the doubt. Because you do not accidentally cheat. You do not accidentally lie for months. You do not accidentally humiliate the person who trusted you with their whole life. That takes effort, planning, choice. And now it was my turn to make a choice. I had no idea what came next. But I knew one thing for sure. I was not going back. I spent that whole day at my brother's place moving like a ghost in someone else's life, eating cereal out of a mug, staring at his bookshelf like it might have answers, taking long showers that never made me feel clean, but it was better than sitting still and letting her voice echo in my head, better than replaying every moment of the party like I missed some clue, some sign that could have warned me. But there had been signs, and I had ignored them. That tight little smile she gave when I said I missed her. The way she flinched when I touched her shoulder. The new lingerie she bought but never wore for me. The sudden work trips. The phone flipped face down. I had seen it all and explained it away, because when you love someone, you do not just believe their lies, you help build them. That night, she showed up outside my brother's building. I knew it was her before I even looked. Something about the way the knock landed, sharp, demanding, like the world owed her attention. I watched her from the peephole for a full minute. She was standing there in a hoodie that used to be mine, eyes puffy but no tears, arms crossed, like she was the one waiting for an apology. I did not open the door. I just watched. She knocked again, then tried the soft voice, the one she used to use when she wanted to smooth something over. Jake, I just want to talk. Please. We can fix this. I know we can. Then the switch flipped. Anger. You are acting like a child. Be an adult and open the damn door. I said nothing. Not because I could not, but because I had nothing left to give her. After a few more minutes, she finally gave up. Walked down the hall, like someone dragging their pride behind them. The silence after she left was different. Not heavy, not aching, just clean. Like when a storm passes and you open the window and everything smells new again. The next morning, I started deleting things. Old texts, photos, videos of us laughing at stupid things, of her sitting on the kitchen counter drinking wine while I made pasta, of Sunday mornings in bed with sunlight across her face. It hurt, more than I expected, not because I missed her, but because those moments felt real at the time, because I had meant it, and she had not. I went through the closet, pulled out everything that reminded me of her, shoved it into a trash bag. I found a birthday card she wrote last year with some handwritten line about forever. I ripped it in half, not out of spite, but because I finally could. I even deleted our shared playlist, the one with the songs we used to call hours. I did not need a soundtrack to this kind of ending. I sat on the edge of the bed that was not mine, in a room that was not mine, and realized that somewhere in the chaos, I had started to feel something I had not felt in months. Control. Not peace. Not yet. But clarity. And that was something. That was the beginning of something. I called a lawyer. Told them I needed to talk about divorce. The woman on the phone had this voice like she had heard 100 men like me in the same week. She was calm, efficient, didn't ask for details. Just gave me a time and an address. I hung up and stared at the ceiling. It did not feel like a failure. It felt like breathing, like finally stepping out of a room that had been full of smoke. And as I sat there, phone still warm in my hand, I realized something else. I had not thought about what she was doing that day. I had not wondered where she was or who she was with. I was done looking over my shoulder. I was walking forward now, and I would not be followed. The lawyer's office was on the third floor of some converted brick building downtown, the kind of place with fake plants in the lobby and motivational quotes framed on the walls. But it did not matter because the second I sat down across from him, something shifted in me, like I had just stepped into the driver's seat after months of riding shotgun in my own life. And when he asked me to walk him through what happened, I told him everything. Not angrily, not emotionally, just fact by fact, moment by moment, betrayal by betrayal. And when I finished, he did not offer sympathy or judgment. He just tapped his pen once and said, "We are going to make this clean and final." And for the first time in weeks, I exhaled. I walked out of that building lighter than I came in, stepped out into the afternoon sun, and stood on the sidewalk like a man learning how to exist again. The next few days were quieter. Claire stopped trying to reach me, or maybe I had just blocked every number she could possibly use, because the silence felt too complete to be accidental. I stayed at my brother's place, kept my head down, started working again during the day, but at night I made a new routine. I went to the gym. I cooked for myself. I rewatched movies I used to love before I forgot how to enjoy things, and little by little I felt the static start to clear. Then the messages started coming from other people. Friends. Her friends. Mutual ones. People I had laughed with, hosted with, vacationed with. Some sent short, careful notes like they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. This is crazy." Others were more honest. One message stood out. It was from Amber, someone I never really trusted, but who always seemed to be around Claire. She told us you two were separated, that it had been a long time, that you had checked out. That hit harder than the images burned into my memory, harder than the moment on the patio, because she had not just betrayed me, she had rewritten the narrative. She was laying down a false trail months before I even caught the scent of it. She had turned me into the villain in her story before I even knew there was a plot twist. I stopped replying to everyone after that. Not because I was bitter, but because it no longer mattered. The truth had become a tool in her hands, something she bent until it fit whatever image she wanted to project, and I was done trying to defend myself in a play where I had never been allowed to write my own lines. But I was not done moving forward. I went back to the apartment, not to talk, not to fight, but to get what was mine. She was already there when I arrived, of course. She always had to be early, always had to control the scene. She opened the door before I even reached for my keys, wearing my old hoodie like it was a costume, hair loose, face bare, trying to look soft. "Hey," she said. I walked past her. The air inside smelled like her candles, like fake lavender and old apologies. She followed me down the hall. "Jake, can we just talk for a second?" I did not answer. I went straight to the office and started packing up what I came for. Papers, laptop, that photo of my dad I had kept on the desk. "You can't just ghost me and file," she said, her voice rising. "We've been together for almost a decade." I stopped, turned. "Yeah. And you threw it away for a guy who uses gym selfies as his profile picture." Her jaw tightened. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "What is not fair is lying to my face, making me feel like I was crazy, rewriting the truth so you could look innocent while you blew up our life from the inside out." She stared at me like she could not believe I was speaking without shaking, without breaking. But I was not broken anymore. I was clear. I walked past her, grabbed what I came for, and left without saying goodbye. Because goodbye was too good for someone who stopped deserving my words a long time ago. The silence after that day was not hollow anymore. It was not the kind of silence that fills your chest with ache or makes your hands shake when the lights go out. It was clean, like walking into a room that had just been emptied of something toxic. And for the first time in what felt like years, I could hear my own thoughts without her voice in the background twisting everything I felt into something shameful, something inconvenient. And I started waking up early not because I had to, but because my body was still wired for a life that no longer existed. And I would sit on my brother's balcony with a cheap mug of black coffee and watch the city come to life while the past slowly peeled itself off my skin. The first few days were strange, like I was wearing clothes that did not quite fit, trying to get used to a routine that did not revolve around her moods, her schedule, her idea of what love should look like. And there were moments when I almost picked up my phone out of habit, moments when I caught myself remembering the way she used to curl into me when she was half asleep or how she would hum off-key while brushing her teeth. But every time those thoughts showed up, I reminded myself that the woman in those memories was not the one who stood on that patio laughing in someone else's arms while I was still trying to hold our life together with shaking hands. So I started small. I went to the gym, not to punish my body but to feel it again. I pulled my guitar out of the closet, the one she said was too loud, and played until my fingers ached. I called Nate, an old friend she never liked, and met him for beer and bad jokes and conversation that did not end in accusations. I watched movies she would have rolled her eyes at. I ate dinner late and messy and exactly the way I liked it. I walked for hours some nights, just moving through the streets like a man relearning what it felt like to be alone without being lonely. And little by little, it got easier. The weight in my chest began to loosen. The phantom of her voice faded. Even her name stopped stinging when it popped up in texts from friends trying to play peacekeeper. And then one afternoon, I passed a bar downtown and saw her inside. Claire. She was sitting at a high table, laughing, a drink in her hand, and next to her was him. The guy from the patio, the reason I started sleeping on a stranger's couch and questioning everything I had once believed about love. His hand was on her leg. She leaned into him like gravity. She did not see me, and I did not freeze. I did not turn to stone. I did not feel my throat close up or my stomach drop. I just kept walking. I did not even slow down. Because in that moment, I finally understood something that had been clawing its way to the surface for weeks. She was not mine anymore. She had not been mine for a long time. Maybe never. The woman in that window was not the one I married. She was just someone I used to love, and now she was someone I no longer recognized. That night, I slept without waking. No dreams. No memories. Just deep, solid sleep that wrapped around me like armor. And when I woke up, I did not think of her. Not even once. I made coffee. I answered emails. I sat on the balcony and smiled without even realizing I was doing it. It did not mean I was healed, but it meant I was alive. And for now, that was enough. I never planned on meeting anyone. Never set out to fall into something new, especially not while the smoke was still clearing from what used to be my life. But sometimes things show up quietly, without ceremony, without warning, like a song playing faintly from a passing car that makes you stop and listen before you even realize why. And that is exactly how I met Lena. Not at a bar or through a dating app or some well-meaning friend's awkward setup, but at a small bookstore tucked between a laundromat and a vape shop. The kind of place that smells like paper and time, and I was standing in front of a shelf holding a book I pretended to be interested in just to avoid going home too early. When she asked if I had read it, and I said no, and she smiled like that was not a problem, like there was no judgment in the question, and then we started talking, not in the forced, overly polite way strangers usually do, but like we already knew the rhythm of each other's sentences, and somehow, that conversation spilled into coffee next door, and then into 2 hours that felt like 20 minutes, and for the first time in months, I forgot to check the clock. Lena was nothing like Claire. She did not lean into me like she was trying to own the space between us. She did not fish for compliments or steer the conversation back to herself every 2 minutes. She asked questions. She listened. She laughed when something was actually funny and sat in silence comfortably when it was not. I told her I had just come out of something heavy, not in detail, just enough to mark the ground, and she did not flinch, did not make it about her, did not ask for more than I was ready to give. She just nodded and said, "That must have hurt like hell." And somehow that felt better than all the "you deserve better" speeches I had heard since the fallout. We started seeing each other slowly, nothing dramatic, no declarations, just late-night walks, casual dinners, shared playlists, and quiet spaces where I did not have to perform. There was one night, a few weeks in, when we were lying on her couch, not touching, not even saying anything, and she looked over at me and said, "You look like someone who is still bracing for impact." And I wanted to laugh, but I could not, because she was right. I was still waiting for the ground to collapse, still half expecting someone to pull the rug out from under me just because that is what had become familiar. But Lena never rushed me. She never tried to fix me. She never made my pain about her comfort. And slowly, my body started to relearn the feeling of safety, of being next to someone without tightening my shoulders, without scanning for the next emotional ambush. I did not tell her everything at once. I did not spill the full story in one breath. But when I did tell her, really tell her, she just sat with it. No pity, no shock, just understanding. She said, "Damn, she really did you dirty." Then added, "But hey, sounds like you finally remembered who the hell you are." And I smiled, not because it was clever, but because it felt like the truth. It was not about revenge anymore. It was not about proving anything to Claire or to the people who believed her version of the story. It was about living in a way that did not require constant explanation. About not shrinking myself to fit into someone else's idea of love. About being seen. And little by little, Lena saw me. Not the shattered version. Not the angry one. Just me. And that was something I had almost forgotten how to be. It ended quietly. No courtroom drama. No screaming matches or tear-soaked apologies. Just an email from the county clerk stamped and signed, confirming what I had already known in my bones for weeks, maybe months, maybe longer. And when I opened the file, all it said was that the marriage was officially dissolved, like it was a business arrangement, like there was no wreckage behind the paperwork. But I did not need the file to tell me it was over. I had felt the ending long before the signatures, long before the lawyer told me it would go fast. And it did, faster than I expected, almost like she wanted to sign herself out of the story before she had to reread it. And when I got the final text from Claire, just one line, no punctuation, no warmth. "I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for." I did not reply, because I already had, not in Lena, not in some big revelation or healing retreat or forgiveness monologue, but in the quiet moments no one claps for, like making coffee in my own kitchen with music playing that I actually like, or sleeping through the night without jolting awake from phantom guilt, or walking past the places we used to go and not feeling that twist in my stomach anymore. Just breath, just space, just me. One morning, I found an old picture of Claire and me shoved in the back of a drawer, one of those photo booth strips from years ago, where we were laughing so hard our eyes were closed, heads leaned together like we were made of the same thing. And for a second I stared at it, not with pain, not with nostalgia, just curiosity, like I was looking at two strangers who had no idea what was coming. No idea how far a heart could stretch before it snapped. And then I let it go, dropped it in the trash, without ceremony, and walked out the door to meet Lena at a weekend market where we ended up buying a stupid sign that said some people love you the way they know how. That does not mean it is the way you deserve, and it made us laugh, because we both knew how real that was, and I hung it up in my hallway where I would see it every day, not as a reminder of her, but as a promise to myself. I did not think about Claire much anymore. Not in the angry way, not in the sad way, just in passing, like a song that used to be your favorite until you realized it never really meant what you thought it did. She faded, not dramatically, just slowly, like bad weather clearing. And I moved forward. I started saying yes to things I used to say no to. I fixed things around the apartment. I made peace with people I had pushed away while trying to keep her happy. I learned to sit with silence and not fill it with noise. I stopped trying to explain myself to people who only listened to respond. And Lena, she never tried to be the cure. She just stood next to me, hand in mine, like presence was enough, and maybe it was. I will not pretend everything is perfect. There are still mornings where I wake up tense, still flashes of doubt when someone gets too close. But now I know that healing is not about wiping the slate clean. It is about planting something new on top of it. Something real. Something alive. And if you are reading this, sitting somewhere with your world cracked open, wondering how the hell it got this far, I will tell you what I wish someone had told me when I was standing on that patio watching everything fall apart. You are not broken. You are becoming. And I promise, once the smoke clears, once the silence settles, once you stop trying to go back to what was never right to begin with, you will find yourself standing in the middle of a life you finally recognize as your own. And maybe one day, like me, you will hear their name again, and you will not flinch. You will just breathe.